Thank you for joining us for Dvar Malchus from the talks of Parshas Vayigash from the 7th of Teves, 57-52. Today's shiur is dedicated to the Refura Shelema of Ariel David ben Simcha. May it be speedily and immediately. Thank you for joining us. Here we go, page 343. We have spoken many times that the matters that are told over the Torah, an idiom for hot Torah instruction, contain in them eternal instructions for every Jew and for Jews in every time, in every place, and in every situation, general instructions as well as specific instructions befitting the special, unique situation of the specific time and place which a Jew finds himself. Likewise, it's also regarding today's Parsha of the Torah, which we must live this week, Vayigash, and Yehuda approached him, which from this there is an external instruction which describes the content of the service and manner of the content of a Jew, also befitting the present time in the last moments of exile, literally next to the truth and complete redemption is spoken many times, and especially recently. At first glance, the connection of the Parsha of Vayigash and Yehuda approached him to the redemption is emphasized in the Haftorah of this Parsha, which is connected to the content of the Parsha, where it speaks about the union of the kingdom of Yehuda and the kingdom of Yosef in the time to come. Take for yourself one stick and write on it for Yehuda, and take one stick and write on it for Yosef, and bring them close to another, and behold, and be one stick for you. And it says, Hashem, behold, I will take the Jewish people from among the nations that they went, and I will gather them from all around, and I will make them into one nation. And there will be one king for all of them, and my servant David will be their leader forever, and the nations will know that I am Hashem. However, in addition to the fact that the Haftorah only expresses the connection of the redemption, however, we do not have a lesson in practice and instructions from it in the service of the Jewish people presently in the days and moments before the redemption. We must also have an explanation in the connection of the Haftorah to the Parsha. For the contrary, and Yehuda approached him in the Parsha, it's seemingly the opposite of the content of David, my servant, is their leader forever in the Haftorah, since in Yehuda approaching Yosef, and in the Parsha in general, it emphasizes how Yosef is the one in charge and the second to the king in the land of Egypt, and Yehuda needs his help. He needs to approach him. Vayigash Elev, and he approached him and requests that he free Benjamin. And he said, please, my master, may your servant speak, for you are like Paro, and are in my eyes like a king, since Paro placed him over all the land of Egypt, and no man can lift his hand or foot without your consent, and especially since Paro was a ruler of the whole world, whereas in the time to come, as it is discussed in the Haftorah, the staff of Yehuda will be above all of them, even Yosef. One king there will be for all of them, and my servant David, the tribe of Yehuda, will be the king over them, and my servant David will be their leader forever. We must understand this first by explaining the connection of the beginning of the Parsha with its conclusion, as we have spoken many times, that according to the rule, the end is wedged into their beginning, and their beginning into their end. There is a special connection between the beginning and the end of the Parsha, and this too needs explanation. As the end of the Parsha, it says, the Jewish people settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they conquered it, and they multiplied greatly, which is indeed shows the strength of Yaakov and his children, that even when they were in the land of Egypt, which was under the rule of Paro, the king of Egypt, Paro said, the best of the land of Egypt is yours, and as per his command, they received a portion in the best of the land, and in a manner that they conquered it, and they multiplied greatly. On the other hand, and Yehuda approached him in the beginning of the Parsha, emphasizes that Yehuda and his brothers are in a negative state, for they need to succumb to beg Yosef, seeing that he is the one in charge of the whole land of Egypt. And prior to Yosef revealing his identity to his brothers, the exact opposite of the content of the end of the Parsha. And may we say that the explanation of this, although it seems at first glance that Yehuda approached Yosef, denotes the strength of Yosef as the leader of the land of Egypt, and how Yehuda needs him, when one thinks it is clear that Yehuda conducted himself here with extraordinary boldness and strength. Yosef was at the time as the delegate of Paro, the ruler of the land, without your consent no man can lift his hand or his foot in the whole land of Egypt. Moreover, Paro at the time was ruler over the whole earth, and Yosef was like Paro, like Yehuda said himself. Nonetheless, we see that Yehuda was knowing that this was that Yehuda, not knowing that this was his brother Yosef, was not intimidated by this, and conducted himself with complete boldness. And that without even asking permission of Yosef. He goes to Yosef, and with his bold approach, and speaks to him harshly, which therefore he preferences. You should not get angry, even though he placed himself in a life-endangering position. Because of this, know what Yosef could do to him for his chutzpah. Indeed, this concludes that Yehuda approached him, shows the strength of Yehuda. According to this, we can understand the connection of Yehuda approached him with the strength of the Jewish people in the land of Egypt at the end of the Parsha. And the Jewish people settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they took a stronghold of it, and they multiplied greatly. And also the strength of the ascent of Yehuda in the Haftorah, and David my servant will be their leader forever, which is a foretaste of this is expressed with which a foretaste of this is expressed in the strength of Yehuda approached him. And may we say that the strength of and Yehuda approached him gave the power that afterward Yaakov and his children descend to Egypt in a manner that not only will they be under the rule of Egypt, rather on the contrary, they took a stronghold of it and multiplied greatly. Moreover, this is in preparation that leads to the state of David my servant will be their leader forever, as we will explain. And this needs even more explanation. The above spoken regarding the strength of Yehuda approached him was from the perspective of Yehuda's original understanding that Yosef was the second to the king from the nations of the world, prior to Yosef revealing his identity to his brothers, which although regarded the strength of Yehuda, this makes no difference, since he did not know that this was Yosef. However, after it was revealed that it is Yosef, indeed, according to how it is the truth, it is seemingly not any more necessary to have the strength of Yehuda in order to accomplish, and they took stronghold of it. And on the contrary, it is seemingly obvious that the strength of and they took a stronghold came through Yosef. For Hashem sent me in front of you to place for you a refuge in the land and to grant your lives a great salvation. And Paro said, in the merit of Yosef, the best of all Egypt is yours. And command to give them a portion of the best of the land in the manner that they took a stronghold of it, and they multiplied greatly. And likewise, we must understand regarding the Haftorah, being that the strength of Yehuda was only for the specific time before it was revealed that it was Yosef. What connection does it have with the strength of Yehuda in the Haftorah? And David my servant will be their leader forever. And on the contrary, being that Yosef the Tzaddik was the one in charge of Egypt, as it was later revealed, indeed the content of this is seemingly the opposite of the Haftorah, where it speaks about Yehuda being elevated over Yosef, and David my servant will be their leader forever. In other words, according to how it was in truth that Yosef the Tzaddik was the ruler over the land, Yosef himself is the one that expresses the strength of the Jewish people in the land of Egypt. Hence, it is unnecessary to have the strength of Yehuda approached him. However, since all matters of Torah are true and eternal, also the original understanding in Torah, and especially in our case, the matter of the approach of Yehuda was not an original thought, rather it actually took place, we must say that the strength of Yehuda and Yehuda approach was not only a matter of a short period of time, rather this accomplishes an innovation even in comparison to the strength of Yosef at that time, and specifically with this power there can be that there took a stronghold of it, and also as the acts of preparation for, and David my servant is their leader forever in the time to come. And may we say that this is understood also from what it is said that he sent Yehuda in front of him to Yosef to show the way before him to Goshen, to make a place for him and to show him how to settle it. For seemingly since Yosef was leading in the land of Egypt, and he as per the command of Paro gave the best of the land to Yaakov and his children, so why was Yehuda needed to make a place for him to show how he should settle in it? From this it is understood that specifically the strength of Yehuda has the power to accomplish this. And may we say that the focal point of the explanation of this, the strength of the Jew, is in the world. And in addition, in the time of exile, all the kingdoms are like Egypt, can be in two manners. His strength is only as the rulers of the nature and conduct the world permanent. And likewise, in the time of the exile, in accordance to the limitation of the exile, as the limitations of exile, the law of the country and the like permit. And two, he stands truly above all matters of the world, and the nation of the world, and most certainly of exile. Moreover, he manages with them strength to the extent that he has the power to change also the laws and conduct of the country. And may we say that the strength of Yehuda accomplishes that a Jew is not only a ruler and Baal Habayit, over the nations of the world in the time of exile, as per the rules of the world and of exile, as was regarding Yosef. Rather, he stands completely above this, as we shall soon explain. We will understand that this based on the explanation of the manner in which Mordechai, a Jew, conducts himself during the time of King Ahasuerus, for he was in a situation similar to that of Yehuda, standing before Yosef. Since the Jews were at the time in exile in Persia and Median under the rule of King Ahasuerus, we are all servants. We are servants of Ahasuerus, not in the days of Hanukkah, which was during the time of the second base of Vayigash. Nonetheless, Mordechai's conduct was such that he would not kneel nor bow down to Haman, although all the king's servants kneeled and bowed down to Haman, because the king had so commanded regarding him. And Mordechai firmly stood so, even with the servants of the king said to him, "Why do you disobey the king's command?" Regarding King Ahasuerus' feast, it says the Megillah Esther, so it was established by the king to do accordingly to each man's desire, literally each man and man. The Talmud says about this that it means to do the desire of Mordechai and Haman. Of Mordechai, it says the Jewish man. Of Haman, it says the man who is adversary and an enemy. And in the Midrash, there are two explanations of the verse. Haman said to him, "I cannot satisfy all my creations. And you seek to do accordingly to every man's desire in the ways of the world. When two men desire to marry the same woman, can she marry both of them? It must be either one or the other. Similarly, two ships will lie at a harbor, one waiting for the north wind and the other for the south wind. Can it be from the same wind that moved them both together? It must be either one or the other. Tomorrow two men will appear before you in a lawsuit, a Jewish man and a man who is an adversary of an enemy. Can you satisfy both of them? You will have to exalt one and hang the other." In other words, Ahasuerus was mistaken in this, since it's not possible to accomplish two opposites at the same time, both of the desires of Mordechai, the Jewish man, as well as the desire of Haman, a man who is an adversary and an enemy, and therefore the verse ridicules him because he would not be able to fulfill the desire of Mordechai and Haman, which were contradictive. Rav Hunan and the name of Rav Benjamin, Ben Levi, being that in this world, prior to the redemption, when the north wind blows, the south wind does not blow. However, in the world in the time to come, at the ingathering of the exile, Hashem said, "I will bring a strong wind into the world, in which both winds are combined." Who is it that fulfills the desires of who is it that fulfills the desires of those who fear him? This is the Holy One, blessed be he, of whom it is written, "He will fulfill the desire of those that fear him." That is even though there will be two desires, one opposite the other, Hashem will fulfill the desire of both of them. And this is the meaning of the desire of those that fear him, and he will do their cry, he will hear their cry. And even though the request of the one who goes against the other, Hashem will heed both of them. However, Ahasuerus was not able to fulfill the desires of the two beloved ministers, which were contrary to each other. And even though he said, two people desire to marry one maidservant, that is referring to as the customary in the world, running according to the laws of nature, in the case of an ordinary people. And he said, in the ways of the world. But for those who fear Hashem, he fulfilled the desire of both of them, meaning that Hashem, in his conduct, in the time to come, will act in the way of doing accordingly to each man's desire. We must understand from the crude expression of the Talmuds above, according to each man's desire, to do like the will of Mordechai and Haman without contradicting the statement in any way. It is implied that even from the perspective of Ahasuerus, there is place for this conduct. Seemingly, how does this fit with the statement of Midrash, with logical reasoning, according to both explanations, that we cannot fulfill two contrary desires? And even according to the second explanation of the Midrash, this is only the power of Hashem, and he will do specifically in future times. We can propose the following explanation when we speak about the ways of the world, that which is customary in the world running according to the laws of nature, and similarly with respect to Hashem, so to speak, as he is vested in the conduct of the world, the name Elohim. Indeed, there could not be the conduct of doing according to each man's desire, like the will of Mordechai and Haman, since they have contrary desires. However, this is not so when one speaks of Hashem, he stands above the conduct of the world, as will be revealed in the time to come. Then it will be possible to do according to each man's desire both opposite wills together. And this is the difference between the explanation of this in the Talmud and in the Midrash. The first explanation in the Midrash is according to the way of the world, and the second explanation speaks as it is in according to Hashem's conduct in the time to come. And from what is it implied that the Talmud, indeed, even the doing according to each man's desire, at the time of Ahasuerus has a practical result, since also at the present time a Jew can, through his connection with Hashem, elevate himself to the level of time to come, that he has the phenomenon of doing according to each man's desires, as we will explain. And the explanation of this is, according to Chassidus, Ahasuerus in his source, in holiness, refers to Hashem, so to speak, and our sages say Ahasuerus refers to Hashem, since Asheres, the end, and Reshis, the beginning, are his. It follows then that so the king established to do the will of each man, and refers to the way that Hashem has set up the world as such that there is a will of a man and a person's personal choice to go according to the will of either Mordechai or Haman. Free will is granted to every person. If he desires to turn himself to the path of good, to be righteous, the choice is his. And if he should desire to turn to the path of evil and be wicked, the choice is him. But this only applies to the mere existence of the will of man. Two opposite wills, and a man chooses one of them. This is not the case, however, concerning doing according to the will of man and a man, to do according to both of them, which cannot be accomplished in actuality, since the will of Mordecai is the matters of holiness, and the will of Haman is the matter of the opposite kind. Therefore, in effect, both wills cannot be carried out. Either the will of Mordecai is carried out, or the will of Haman. In greater depth, the contradiction of doing the will of man and a man is not only that in effect one cannot perform according to both wills, but rather the will of Mordecai and Haman, the will of man and man, are in general opposing approaches that seemingly rule one another entirely. The will of Mordecai is in a manner of not kneeling or prostrating himself, as the sages stated concerning Mordecai's being called a Yehudi, because he denied idolatry. For anyone who denies idolatry is called a Yehudi, and therefore every Jew is called by the name Yehudi, since one's Judaism is summed upon him denying idolatry, not kneeling and prostrating oneself. And it is known that this includes not only idolatry literally, rather anything that is not connected with the command, and you shall serve Hashem, your God, even if it does not contradict Jewish law. It is called idolatry, service that is strange to him. It is strange to a Jew, since the entire conduct of a Jew is to do the will of your Father in heaven. As our sages say, I was created only to serve my master, and since I was created in every moment of a person's existence in this world, it is understood that every detail of the service of every moment must be to serve my master, as the Torah commands, and your action should be for the sake of heaven, and in all your ways know him, all specifically, and not only in all of your actions, rather also that each and every action should be entirely for the sake of heaven. For if it is a minor something that remains outside of this serving one's master, it is a service that is strange to him, since this is opposite of I have created, including the perfection of this, when your actions are not merely for the sake of heaven, rather for your actions and your ways themselves know him, and moreover they become heaven itself, like eating and drinking on Shabbos, which they themselves are mitzvah, and the mitzvah of having pleasure on Shabbos. And this is the will of Mordechai, that not kneeling and prostrating himself to anything in this world, even a permitted thing according to the Shulchan Aruch, since everything that is not in service of Hashem is a service that is strange to him. By contrast, the will of Haman is idolatry, not only literal idolatry, heaven forbid, rather any service that is strange to him, to a Jew, being that it is not service of Hashem. And this claim is, since we find ourselves in the world and in exile, we are subject to the laws and limitations of nature, which Hashem created, and therefore one needs to give them consideration, at least with respect to permitted things and matters of this world. It is clear, therefore, to do the will of a man and a man, that the will of Mordecai and Haman is contradictory within itself. When a Jew is in the world, and in addition in a time of exile, we are still service of Ahasuerus, where he has different limitations due to the conduct of nature in the world, and the laws of the country, and the laws of the government, is the law, and the limitations imposed due to the accepting conduct of the country, etc. When all this does not conflict with the fulfillment of Torah and mitzvahs, that force him according to the will of Hashem, and according to Torah, to behave in a certain fashion, then it is not possible to fulfill the will of man and man, since the will of Mordecai, not kneeling and prostrating himself, in the view of the fact that anything outside of the service of Hashem is idolatry, seemingly negates not only the practical carrying out of Haman's will, but rather the entire approach that one need give consideration to accepting worldly practice. And on the other hand, if we take into consideration that Hashem sent Jews into exile, then seemingly the conduct should be according to the will of Haman, limited to the conduct of the world when it does not conflict with Torah mitzvahs. Notwithstanding this, the novelty is when we are connected with Hashem, He stands above the conduct of the world. We have the ability to join two opposites. As we are in the world of exile, we indeed not kneel and not prostrate, since we are entirely above these limitations. Accordingly to the above explanation, in the words of the Midrash, it can be readily understood. The two explanations of the Midrash express two approaches in the Jews' divine service in the time of the exile, being that Hashem has sent a Jew into this world, additionally into exile under the rule of Ahasuerus, and it is a law of the Torah. The law of the government is the law. Apparently, one could think, as the will of Haman, that in matters of the world, not regarding things that are connected to Torah and mitzvahs, it is impossible that there should be two opposites of, like the will of man and man, the will of Mordechai and Haman. At once and altogether, with we are servants of Ahasuerus into exile, one may act in a matter of not to kneel and not to prostrate to these ways of the world, since only one of these is possible. Hashem sent the Jews into exile. That means that one is to some degree limited by the conduct of nature and the laws of the land, as well as the will of Haman. If we are not in exile, which then one acts accordingly to the will of Mordechai, in a matter that is not kneeling and not prostrating, it is not possible to say that there is the will of Hashem. With respect to the obligations that a Jew has of fulfilling Torah and mitzvah according to Shulchan Aruch, it is clear and simple. No one in any case or form can rule over a Jew even in the time of exile. But with respect to matters of permitted and matters of the world, your actions and your ways, how is it possible that he may act both according to the will of Haman, namely according to the conduct of nature, according to the ways of the world, and if not, he is transgressing the commandment of the king, and accordingly to the will of Mordechai, not to kneel and not to prostrate. Hence, the Midrash says, in what case is there a contradiction between the will of man and man, when we are speaking of the conduct of the world? However, from the perspective of Hashem, as he is above the conduct of nature, both things can be achieved simultaneously. A Jew can find himself in the world and in exile, servants of Ahasuerus, and at the same time stand entirely above all matters of the world and exile, not to kneel and not to prostrate until he even affects the Gentile king who rules over him. And this is the means of the crude expression of the Talmud, to do the will of man and man to do according to the will of Mordechai and Haman. And the Talmud doesn't treat this with contempt, since Mordechai's complete nullification to Hashem, not kneeling and not prostrating, denying idolatry, connected him to the strength of Hashem, who is above the conduct of the world, giving the power for him on one hand, being in the Persian exile under King Ahasuerus, yet at the same time maintaining the complete perfection of not kneeling, not prostrating until this also brought above the nullification of Haman's decree and the promotion of Mordechai to be the second to the king. And this Hashem gives over to the will of the Jew, even when he finds himself in exile. He has no choice to act like the will of the man and man, and he is steadfast only in so far as it is necessary to actually fulfill Torah and mitzvahs. But in all other matters, he feels as if he is subject to the limitation of nature and the ways of the world, etc., in service that is strange to him, according to the will of Hashem, heaven forbid, or he chooses to act according to the will of Mordechai, that in all matters he stands over and above the world and the exile being connected with him, and therefore regarding him there is no kneeling and no prostrating to any matter that is not service of Hashem and only depends on his will. It is the matter, however, that there is differentiation from one generation to another. In most of the generations, there were mainly limitations from outside power, royal decrees, and such like, which did not allow Jews to stand entirely over and above the exile. And this is not the case, however, in our generation, where it is dependent only on the will of a Jew. Based on this, we will understand that the achievement of Yehuda, and Yehuda approached him, that surpasses Yosef. Although Yosef the Tzaddik was the ruler of the land, which shows that the Jew is master over the world and over the nations of the world around him, nonetheless he was appointed to this position by Paro, the king of Egypt, namely that he is connected to the degree of the king and the laws of the country, and as such, that after him being appointed, I will be greater than you only by the throne, which shows that Yosef still has a minor connection to the limitations of the world of Egypt. whereas the strength of and Yehuda approached him constitutes the fact that he approached Yosef without receiving permission first, and affected him that Yosef was not able to hold himself in, which denotes a strength that does not take into account the conduct of the country and the ways of the world. In other words, a union of two opposites, as the will of man and man, along with Yehuda knowing that he needs Yosef in order to free Benjamin, to the extent that Yehuda tells him, "You are like Paro," which therefore he, Yosef, has the power to fulfill the request of Yehuda, and also that with this Yehuda eliminated Yosef, sending him to Paro through the reasoning that the throne is higher than you. He acted with the complete authority as if he did not need Yosef, and Yehuda approached him powerfully, etc. And therefore, specifically, after Yehuda approached him, did we receive the power that will And therefore, specifically, after Yehuda approached him, did we receive the power with the help of Yosef that there should be, and the Jewish people settled in the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen, the best of the land. And although one finds himself in the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, an idiom for Mitzrayim, limitation of Mizraim, limitations under the kingdom of Paro, the phenomenon of the Jewish people settle takes place there in a matter of truly settled. Moreover, and they took a stronghold of it, and they receive an estate as a manner of holding on to it strongly, which expresses a strong hold. As such, they became the one in charge there, to the extent that they multiplied greatly in a manner of beyond limits. And this brings about afterward immediately Vayigash, and Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years, that in Egypt he had good life. 17, the numerical value of the Hebrew letters of Tov, good, and true life physically and spiritually. With this, we will also understand the connection of Yehuda approached him. To David, my servant, will be their leader forever in the Haftorah. The strength of Yehuda's approaching Yosef, empowered by his connection to Hashem through Yehuda, an idiom of Hadoah, submission to Hashem, Hoduah, submission to Hashem, as Hashem is above the conduct of the world, as he will be revealed in the time to come, is a preparation which gives the power to bring the true and complete redemption, when there will be a manifestation at the height of perfection through the entire world, and strength of David my servant will be their leader forever, connected to the complete strength of Hashem, who has the power to accomplish the will of those that fear him. He shall do the union of two opposite desires, as such as this affects also the nations will know that I am Hashem. And as the Rambam rules that the king Mashiach will fight the wars of Hashem and will win all the nations around him, and accomplishes the fulfillment, then I shall transform the nations to have a clear tongue to call out in the name of Hashem and to serve him as one. And as explained in many places, that the power of the revelation of David my servant will be their leader forever. The virtue of Yehuda is as a result of the initial step of Yehuda approached him, that Yehuda receives the godly revelation from Yosef, and through this the virtue of Yehuda is revealed. And David my servant will be their leader forever, similar to the phenomenon of the redemption being adjacent to prayers, which accomplishes that also of prayer, Malchus, Yehuda, that there is drawn a phenomenon of redemption of Yosef Yesod, to the extent that it becomes the one long redemption, namely that Malchus itself, the angel that redeems. And based on the above, we may add to this that Yehuda approached him is emphasized in addition to the submission and receiving from Yehuda, also mainly the strength of Yehuda due to his virtue that surpasses Yosef, and the fact that this needs to receive him only in order to reveal his strength in completeness, as will be in the time to come. Based on the above, we will also understand the lesson and instruction from, and Yehuda approached him regarding our generation and time period, standing right before the true and complete redemption, notwithstanding the strength of Yehuda in this time, and Mordechai in his time, and that the Tzaddikim through the generations, still there were limitations from outer powers, namely imposed by the nations of the world, and their decrees on the Jewish people, heaven forbid, this shall not occur again, which did not always allow the Jewish people to act with complete strength and authority. Whereas in our generation and in the present time, we see in actual fact that the interferences of the past are no more. The nations of the world allow Jewish people to act as they desire, and therefore the matter is only up to the Jewish people to fulfill. They took a stronghold of it, and they multiplied greatly as is actually done in many places with complete strength and boldness, both in this country, America, as a country of kindness, who let the Jewish people act as they desire, and similarly in many countries throughout the world. And recently we see how even in countries where there were previously several limitations, these limitations have ceased, as spoken many times, and on the contrary, not only are the Jewish people free to act as they desire, what more, the governments of the nations of the world help them do this. Help them in this. And in addition to the Jewish people being able to act in the way of Torah and mitzvahs in their own 4 cubits, as we see in actual fact, that in recent years it is becoming consistently easier to achieve the taking a stronghold of it in every single place throughout the entire world, since the world, not only Jews, rather also the nations of the world, in a vessel to receive matters of Judaism, Torah and mitzvahs, and regarding the nations of the world, the 7 no-hide mitzvahs, to the extent, as we spoke and aroused many times recently, that according to the nullification of my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, leader of our generation, we have already completed all the preparations for Mashiach, and now it is necessary for us to draw the redemption into the realm of reality in the physical and coarse physicality of the world, coarse physicality that is transformed to physicality in a clear, open way to the physical eyes. For notwithstanding the strength of the service of the Jewish people in exile, and even as they are in exile in a state of spiritual redemption, this is still not the completeness of the redemption in the simple sense, revealed literally in the physical world, which we will eliminate the exile with all these jurisdictions of the exile. Children that are exiled from that at the table of their father, including the fact that at the time of the Jewish people, or heaven forbid, like an aguna for her husband Hashem went to a foreign country after their betrothal, at the exodus from Egypt, until there will be the marriage of the true and complete redemption. Now all that is necessary to open the eyes, we will see how the entire world demands that every Jew should already be at the state of the true and complete redemption. And when we say that this in itself is the reason that we see today how Jewish people can stand with complete strength and authority even over the nations of the world in matters of Judaism, that it is not only up to them, for since we are right before the redemption, when the servant of David will be the leader forever, and the nations will know that I am Hashem, will be revealed in reality. Therefore, this reflects itself in reality in the state of our generations as preparation that leads straight into the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. And to add that this is hinted in Yehuda approached him, that together with the help from the strength of the service of Yosef of our generation, my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, leader of our generation, we also have the Yehuda approached him, Mashiach, who will come literally soon. And David, my servant, will be their leader forever, who comes with the help and empowerment of Yosef of our generation. You are like Para of holiness. All lights burst forth and are revealed from him. From this it's understood the lesson for our generation, through us acting in a manner of Yehuda approached him, that we show strength and authority regarding Judaism, being a Jew, which the world was created for the Jewish people. This itself brings that David, my servant, will be the leader forever. The phenomenon of Yehuda approached him, the strength and authority of the Jewish people over the world in our generation, is also emphasized that on the day of the 5th of Teves, which was on the 5th of the week, the preference to Shabbat, and the Shabbos is of the 7th of Teves, it is within 3 days of the 5th of Teves. This day is connected to the release and redemption of the captive of the books and the manuscripts of the Rebbes of our leaders, our leaders, in the manner of us having complete agreement and assistance of the laws of the nation and the world to the eyes of all nations in the federal court. There are, however, more books and handwritten manuscripts of my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, and of his father, the Rebbe Rashab. May his soul rest in Eden, which are still in captivity in that country, that still have not been returned to their place, even though also regarding them there was already the kingly edicts even of the nations of the world, that they should be free. The verdict that the books should be returned, and connected also with the fact that in recent days the capital of that country was subdued to the extent that we removed it to a different city through the writing and signing of the laws of that country, which in matters like this, the law of the country is the law. What can every person do to hasten the redemption and return of the books and manuscript? The answer is simple. Through each and every male and female, men, women, and children doing something similar, through bringing into one's house and into one's library and the like, new holy books and manuscripts in matters of Torah, in addition to the books that he has from before in his house full of books. And today, with this, it is easy to do, since every week new matters in Torah are printed, both those that are reprinted, as well as moreover and mainly new ones. As a result, it is easy to buy the books and in this way add more and more in receiving and buying new books. As the known explanation of the leader of our generation for why a book needs to cost money, to the extent that he requests to print the price on several booklets, and he explained the reason for this, since in the Olam world, an idiom for Hashem's concealment, a valuable object costs money, and his basis in his saying of our sages, a doctor that costs nothing is worth nothing, and most certainly that's so much in regarding the words of Torah, which Torah brings healing to the world. And whoever is speedy, he is praised. Resolution should be taken in the above now, and fulfilling this as soon as possible, including through making an order in advance and hence pay for it in a subscription to receive new books that will be published later on in the known expression printed in several books. And when the book is printed, one receives the subscription immediately. Likewise, it is also suggested to utilize the Jewish custom to give holy books that are printed as a present to others, including small children, for a happy occasion or for a holiday or the like. And may it be the will of Hashem that through every broadening of their efforts in getting new books, this will hasten yet more the fulfillment of Yehuda approached him in redeeming Benjamin, that all the books and manuscripts of the Rebbes of our leader of our generation will be returned to their true place, the house of our Rebbe in the diaspora, 770, the numerical value of Paratza, and unite that there all the books and manuscripts of the Rebbes and the leaders. And literally immediately this should bring along with it the redemption of the captives and all the sparks of holiness in the world. And literally immediately the Jewish people go, with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, and their silver and their gold with them, including all their books and manuscripts, to our holy land, to the holy city of Jerusalem, to the holy mountain, to the third base of Migdash, to the Holy of Holies, where the Shisaya stone, the foundation stone, is found without any change since the creation of the world. And all this literally immediately. Thank you for listening to today's Dvar Malchus.